Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into the Slate NBA edition tonight on this Tuesday. Brendan Glasheen with Matt Meiselman and Shirag Hira. A lot to discuss. 7-game slate, 2 national TV games, and of course, a lot to unpack from what was a football-heavy weekend. NBA trade deadline was last week. So over on the DK Sportsbook, plenty of futures available to us. We did not have that at our disposal last Tuesday, even though the deadline was last Thursday, but we had the Sabonis Kings trade, we had the McCollum Pelicans trade, so a lot that we wanted to talk about, we really couldn't. At least we were making predictions in that least bit. We'll also take your questions as it pertains to the DK Sportsbook and also tonight's daily fantasy slate, which there is still a lot to find out about in terms of news on that front. Gents, hi. Meiselman, are we going to get used to this Eminem 8 Mile look out of you? Did Eminem inspire you from the weekend?
That's exactly what happened. I think this will be the last show that I do it, sadly. The All-Star break is when I can finally leave my house and not have to do basketball all day long. So I think maybe I'll get a haircut then and not have to rock this hat. But yeah, I'm just trying to be Eminem over here.
Very nice. Shirag Hira, how are you?
I'm great. Can't complain. I mean, I'm here in Boston in the nice chilly weather, enjoying the snow. So, such is life.
Yeah, you sound thrilled. So, glad you're here in your DraftKings vortex.
Yeah, but we're back to the vortex style.
All right, how about some opening thoughts on the slate? Boston and Philadelphia get us started at 7:30. Another great game tonight. Clippers and Suns. You got the Bucks, who made news today signing Bembry on the buyout market. So he is a member of the Bucks now. I'm not sure he's playing tonight, but injuries to get to, of course. Dallas, Miami is a pretty fun matchup as well. What jumps off the page? Meiselman, we'll go to you first because you got some thoughts here on the Atlantic Division as a whole, which we'll get to, but maybe this Celtics-Sixers game, which will not include James Harden. James Harden, if you haven't heard already, is not playing for the Sixers until after the All-Star break.
Yeah, so let's start with the injuries going on for tonight. I think we'll get to futures for sure, and the Atlantic Division has gotten really interesting with the Celtics winning streak and James Harden not yet playing. Boston is kind of closing in on Philly. Brooklyn's gone way back, but for tonight, we have the Celtics-Sixers game where the Celtics open -3, which even without any injuries and with the assumption Harden's out, that line seemed too excessive for Boston. Like, we have the Celtics inflated because of their winning streak. Now we know that Marcus Smart and Robert Williams are questionable. The Sixers have no business being home underdogs if those guys are out. And honestly, even if just one of them is out, I think Philly deserves to be at least a couple of points favored. So this news is going to be big. Like, the Celtics, the one thing that they don't have post-deadline is depth. This is a scary thing to think about if you're a Celtics fan or someone who's interested in Celtics futures. They kind of need all their guys. I mean, in the backcourt, if you remove Marcus Smart, I think Derek White can fill in adequately, but you still have to have a bunch of Peyton Pritchard minutes or Aaron Nesmith or whoever. In the front court, Daniel Tice replacing Robert Williams. I mean, I know Celtics fans love Daniel Tice, but that is a massive downgrade if that's what happens. My guess is that Grant Williams would be the starting power forward, Al Horford up to center, but we would still likely see Tice playing a decent amount of center in the game. So, yeah, I mean, if the Celtics don't have all their pieces, I think Philly has the advantage in this game, even without Harden, because the Sixers didn't really have to give up anyone besides Seth Curry in the Harden deal. If we're just talking about guys that would have been playing because Ben Simmons wasn't playing anyway. So, yeah, I think this is a game where Philly could really have the edge if the Boston news breaks the wrong way. It's going to be really important to see what happens there. And then in terms of prop betting too, like the performances that Al Horford has had in games where Robert Williams has been out, he moves up to center. There's more rebounding. He has the ball in his hands more. It's just, and it's more minutes. They just kind of need him to play more minutes. So I'm very interested in Al Horford, and then also the Sixers to win the game if we have Robert Williams and even Marcus Smart not playing too. I'll leave it there because there are a bunch of games with a bunch of contingencies. But yeah, that's kind of just my overview of the Celtics and the Sixers.
Yep, Horford's rebounding prop at 6.5, and for the record, look, Tice has played for the Celtics before. He was reacquired. You can tell Brad Stevens really wanted to keep that guy. But the Celtics, it's not normal. There's another word for that, and I'm not thinking of it. I guess it is normal. That's actually the right way to put it. Not normal. Not normal is normal. It is normal for the Celtics in years past to play Horford and Tice together. So that is not unordinary or ordinary. Jeez.
You got
Words
it.
are hard.
You're doing well here.
Yeah, great start. Anyway, point being, it's not like they've never done it before with the same personnel. So, but to your point, it is a downgrade. Yes, in terms of ability, Williams to Tice. How about you, Chirag? A jumping off point on tonight's slate.
Kind of interesting. I did have similar thoughts to the Celtics one, just thinking about, how we've been working. Matt and I have been working on a secret formula to bet games on. And in the secret formula, we have the
news to me.
It's actually, I can't take credit for it. It's all Matt's secret formula. I'm just wanting to push him to make it better and refine it as it continues to grow. But special formula hits on the Sixers, and let's see how much it holds. And the thing is, it was giving the current bet model or whatever to the Sixers from the start before the news, and now getting the news provides us an opportunity to attack it there. But overall, I think that there's opportunities here with, these games have been really, really odd last night. I was talking to Matt about it yesterday. The players are ready to go to the All-Star break. If you see games that are out of whack, out of sync, random upsets, random spreads or totals or rest or anything like that, just attribute it to the All-Star break. I would say now is the time to size down because the variance is up. If you're looking to make a bet or try to enjoy a game, maybe don't live bet, because there have been opportunities where guys are just like, we lost this game. Like the Warriors last night, they lost the game. The Kings, the Nets had lost, what was it, 10 in a row or 12 in a row? I don't remember off the top of my head, but they had lost 10 games in a row, had no Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, just shipped out James Harden. All these other guys just came in and were like, well, you know what? We're going to play well. And the Kings just were the Kings. Yeah. And it's an opportunity here just to say variance is up. So just watch your betting units right now, because you're going to get a much stronger base to work from in a week, basically, because all these guys are going to be rested and coming back and pushing for the playoffs. The Lakers are going to start trying finally. That's what's going to happen. But now that's kind of my perspective of how I've been approaching these.
He brought them up first.
I had to do it.
He always does this.
But I just felt like the way to attack this slate is just be careful. Just pick your spots. There's no rush to sit here and say, I need to figure out or break down every single game. It's pick your spots where you feel most comfortable and make your bets there.
And to use another example, it's not like they did not try, but the Thunder beat the Knicks last night. Knicks are a 10-point favorite. Maybe you're in this position, to your point, like, oh, let's live bet the Knicks. Thunder are keeping it close. Knicks will pull away. And maybe the Knicks are thinking of it like, oh, they'll quit first, but that never happened. And then just kind of looking at tonight's board, you do have a situation where Dallas is in Miami. The rest of these matchups, the teams are relatively close to each other. So you consider travel as well. They're like, let's get to Friday. Let's get to Friday. Let's get to Friday. Let's get to Friday. So it's a great point to be disciplined this week. Guys are thinking about the break. I mean, Meiselman, it might have been you, or maybe it was someone else I was speaking to, but even the Phoenix Suns, the way they were playing a little bit on their East Coast trip, arguably the best team in the NBA, they were even in some games where I'm like, wow, the Suns can't wait for the break. Like they are kind of waltzing here. Now they're so good that they can turn it to another level and finish games, but even the Suns covering spreads the last couple weeks on that trip out east was problematic.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking this over. Like, I'm not sure that I totally buy this narrative, at least as it applies to the league on the whole. Like, I think there are certain teams that for sure are just ready for the All-Star break. I think the Lakers probably are the best example of that. Like, they need the time off. The Suns were playing without DeAndre Ayton for a while, and they also were playing without Jay Crowder and Cameron Payne. and Landry Shamit's been hurt. Like, I think they were just injured, so that might have been a different thing. They were struggling for more predictable reasons. I think they were just missing a lot of their depth. The same is true for a couple other teams. Like, I mean, I guess Milwaukee just lost last night, but Giannis didn't play. I think we've had some situations like that. The Hawks have been losing without John Collins. So yeah, I think it's case by case. Like, I don't want to paint too broad of a brush as far as like how to treat the league right now. I think if you have a spot that looks especially good, just go for it. Like this Celtics Sixers game, there is no way that these two teams are thinking we need to be at the All-Star break. This is a massive game for the top of the Atlantic Division. Like, and just these are teams that are probably going to see each other later in the season for sure, and then potentially the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I think this is a meaningful game for both teams. It's a national TV game. I think if Marcus Smart can get out there, he's going to play. If Robert Williams feels okay, he's going to play it. So maybe we care about the break more in terms of will guys be on the court or not. But
right,
with the players who we know are active, like there's no way Joel Embiid's taking it easy tonight. This is a pretty big deal for him. I think the same is true for teams that are more on the playoff bubble, like the Atlanta Hawks, who have not been winning. The Cavs are potentially a team they may need to pass for playoff positioning. So, like, I'd be shocked if, not shocked, but I think Bogdanovich and DeLon Wright will play tonight. The Hawks play again tomorrow against the Magic. So, like, the opponent is also worth considering here, too. The Magic are a much less important game for Atlanta than the Cavs are. That might be a team they need to gain ground on for play-in seeding and all of that. So, yeah, to me, it's really case by case. If there's a team on this board that doesn't need to win right now, I think it's Miami, who has just run away essentially with the Southeast Division. They're well ahead of the Hornets.
Right.
And they also play the Hornets on the road in 2 nights. So if it wasn't for that setup with the All-Star break looming, with the Hornets coming up in 2 days, I would say, yeah, of course, Jimmy Butler wants to play against Luka Doncic. Maybe if it were a national TV game, that would be true. But I'm pretty undecided on whether Butler goes tonight. That's one of the other major injuries we have is Butler's questionable. The Heat are in a different position than many of these other teams where I think they can afford to coast a little bit and let Butler sit tonight.
Yeah, and the two best division races at the moment are the East, well, the Atlantic in the East and the Central in the East, with Philly, Boston. I mean, 4 of the 5 are in it, right? Toronto, Brooklyn. And then, of course, in the Central, you've got Chicago, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. Cleveland is playing Atlanta. Milwaukee is playing Indiana at home. So that's a spot where if they handle their business, they could maybe tie themselves up with Cleveland. So, yeah, there are some big games this week with races here. But otherwise, you're right. I mean, a lot of these other divisional races are kind of getting out of hand. I think that might be a good time for us, unless we have other specific game thoughts, to maybe discuss Atlantic Division futures. That is a really popular topic because the trade was done in division, James Harden, Ben Simmons. And we did hear from both players today. We have not learned. We know Ben Simmons ain't playing anytime soon. We don't know for sure. They're going to ramp it up. That's what Doc Rivers said. And that's what Simmons said. They're going to ramp it up and get himself ready to go. So he's not ready just yet. And for Harden, the plan is after the All-Star break. We don't know what that could be, though. That could be the first game after the break. Could that be at the end of the week after the break? We don't know.
Yeah. I do think we should get there, but I want to touch on one more game just because we're coming up on 5:30 and the news may break while we're talking. So I'd rather just like get the points out there on it with Ja Morant, who is the other major questionable guy. And then I'm perfectly happy to go over the Atlantic Division again because it's just been a fun thing to talk about to see the odds move. But Ja Morant's questionable. My hunch is that he plays. If he doesn't play, I don't think that we need to care about the spread for this game all that much, whether he's in or not. I've been kind of saying this for a while, but I don't think Ja Morant is that important in terms of whether the Grizzlies win or lose because he's overvalued as a player. He's good, but he's not as good as people think. And DeAnthony Melton is probably the league's best backup point guard. Tyus Jones might be the league's second best backup point guard. They have both of those players on their bench. So because Morant's being replaced by viable players off the bench, he just isn't that impactful for the team winning and losing. But at the same time, if he's out, we get a much slower game because Morant is, I mean, anyone who's ever seen Ja Morant play knows that he runs up and down the court as fast as just about anyone. He's not really a good defender and he's a great offensive player. So this totals 228.5. If Morant gets ruled out, I think we see it drop to like 222, if not lower. I think it'll be a pretty big fall. So before we hit this 5:30 mark where we often get news, I kind of just wanted to put it out there. Like The under is a really, really good bet if Ja Morant doesn't play at this current number.
It's juiced up to 115. And you had a similar take, Meiselman, correct me if I'm wrong, last week when there was news about Trae Young being up in the air.
Morant can't possibly rival Trae Young's impact on the total because Trae Young's even worse at defense. He's even better at offense. And he probably plays even faster with the way he draws fouls too, just how many more possessions are in a game with Trae Young. But if we had to rank the players in the NBA that have the largest impact on totals, it's probably Trae Young, Steph Curry, and then Ja Morant. The reason it's not Damian Lillard is because Damian Lillard's backup is Anthony Simons, who is very similar stylistically to Lillard. For those other examples, the backups are slower paced players. Simons makes the Lillard situation unique. But yes, Trae Young, when he doesn't play, DeLon Wright is a defense first guard. The same is true in the Morant situation where D'Anthony Melton and Tyus Jones are defense first guards. So it's not just about the player himself. It's who's filling in for him. It's just, no one can be as extreme as Trae Young. Like, he doesn't guard anyone. He might be the best offensive guard in the league. I think that's not even a stretch to say he's better offensively than Steph Curry. So it's a little like Trae Young, but maybe it's like a B version of Trae Young.
Shrog, another game you'd like to get into?
I know that Matt had actually looked this up about the Hornets and Timberwolves total. He's mentioning totals. Did you get any information on that game?
I am unsure still if it's the highest total ever, but it's the highest of this season that I know.
Yeah, so that total
is gigantic.
244. Pretty crazy. And I did a bet stream on Friday with Matt Moore and Raheem Palmer from the Action Network, and it included the Timberwolves. And there was no defense played. DeRozan just went to town. It was awesome to see because DeRozan just been on absolute fire, but Vooch just carved them up. They were getting carved up by Ayo. Like, it literally, the Timberwolves don't really play very much defense, and the Hornets on top of it don't play very much defense. So while it's a really big total, there is an option to consider the over. I would potentially look at, like, considering how maybe these teams are like, oh, you know what? We don't really have to play defense right now. Let's just go and play some street ball. Like, there's an opportunity here for this total to come back. If you check, like, we might go over 250.
Wow. Okay. I will say this too. What's noticeable about the Charlotte Hornets, without Gordon Hayward in the lineup, they're disconnected offensively. However, they're also disconnected defensively. So the pace of the game, I think, without another ball handler, Rozier and Ball just put their head down, and they're up and down, up and down, up and down. There's no flow. Well, there's flow to their game, but it can get erratic, which would help an over, right? So I think you'd think, oh, Hayward's out. Well, that's a guy who can score. That's a guy who gets assists and is part of their see where you're going with this. I mean, he's out, so that's a key injury to note there, that he's out tonight. So I can see where you're going with it. Meiselman, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, to Schrog's point earlier about higher variance, I think one of the places where I do think that that's true, where results are less predictable, is teams that are different after the trade deadline. So Montrezl Harrell being there could mean some different dynamics. Like, when Mason Plumlee is the starting center and PJ Washington is the backup, that's a different thing with the second unit, where Washington is a small ball center. There's not a lot of defensive resistance with him on the court. Harrell is not the best defensive center either. He's a little undersized, but I feel like that could help a little. So yeah, I mean, I could see this game having 270 points in regulation. Like, that would not be shocking to anybody. But at the same time, I'm a little nervous about it because the Hornets are a little bit different. And it's just such a big number. A lot of these Wolves games that have been really high scoring have been games where Patrick Beverley doesn't play. And he's a very important defensive player for them. Josh Okogie also, maybe not as good of a defender, but because he's lacking on offense, when he's on the court, you just get less points because he doesn't really generate shots, but he plays good defense. So yeah, I'm a little nervous, but like, I would not be shocked to see this game go way over the total, because I think what happens sometimes, you can't really know it until the results start to come in, but teams just get into a flow of playing really, really fast, and then they start to feed off of each other, right? Like, I don't have a good enough feel for games to live bet in this way, but there are basketball games where you can see how the first 5 minutes go and be like, these teams are just not going to guard. Like they're having too much fun, just both playing off of each other in terms of pace. And then maybe you live bet the total after seeing that. So that's not for me to do. I don't have as good of an eye as maybe some other people, but it could be the kind of thing where you could watch and like glean some information as far as like what these teams are intending on doing over the course of the game. This is just, it's a little bit of a reach for me. I'd rather just focus on some of the other games, but I'm interested to see this one because I think whether they get there on the 244 points or not, the game's going to be up tempo. That's for sure.
Right. Two teams that are in it. They're both in the discussion in their respective conferences to make the playoffs. So I don't think there's and they both like need the games. Minnesota's in the play-in right now. Charlotte would be in the play-in. So we don't have to worry about a team quitting, I think, Chirag in this spot. And two teams that they play hard. I think Chirag said it best. It's a game of street ball. It's like first to 130 wins. And you hope the other team scores 120 in the process.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. All right. What else we got? What do you think? Clippers. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying it's a 6-point spread too. So, I mean, we could see 124 to 130, and still be able to get over this number.
So, to that point, it feels like it's built that way, right? The number, like someone's going to score 130 in this game. That's what to me, that feels like.
Yeah. There's a possibility in that outcome. If you don't feel like betting the total, the full total, maybe consider looking at the team total for the Timberwolves is where I would potentially look at.
Meiselman, do the Suns pull away against the Clippers, or do the Clippers stand a chance getting 13 points?
This is not a game I'm interested in too much as far as the spread. Maybe once we get Luke Kennard clarification, I actually think he's kind of a big deal for the Clippers. They beat the Warriors without him, but he's especially important because the team's probably tired after last night and he didn't play. So Luke Kennard's well rested, but also like going down to Amir Coffey and Brandon Boston is a bit of a downgrade. So I actually do care a decent amount about Luke Kennard being out there. I probably like the Clippers getting the 13 if they have him available. If they don't, I'm probably just staying away from it. If there's another game on here that I like, well, if Giannis winds up sitting, definitely the Pacers, but I'm pretty sure that Giannis is playing. Like I think last night was basically rest. So he's still listed probable. I'd be very surprised if he sits tonight. The Hawks and the Cavs are probably the game on here that's most interesting to me. The Hawks have actually moved. They were +1. Now they're -1. I still like this. I like it more if Bogdanovich and DeLon Wright play. They're both questionable, but they went through shoot around. I think we should see them out there. But to me, the Cavs are arguably the most overvalued team in the league right now. They've won some games that I really didn't think they should have won. They came back from down 20 or so points against the Pacers and covered a 6.5 point line by 7 in the final seconds, which we can talk about for other reasons later. But anyway, I just don't think that Karis LeVert is as good as people think. And they don't have Lauri Markkanen still. So to me, the Cavs are just the same quality of team that they were before they traded for LeVert. And LeVert is basically a fill-in for Markkanen. When Markkanen's back, that will make some difference. But the Hawks, even without John Collins, I think are at least as good of a team as Cleveland, despite the fact that their record is substantially worse. If you just look at the track record of the Hawks from last year, you just kind of go player by player on these teams. The Hawks have struggled, but they're at home here. Like, I think they should win even without Collins. I'll feel a little differently if they don't have Bogdan or DeLon Wright playing, because then you have Lou Williams playing a bunch of minutes, which I'm never a fan of, at least at this point in his career. But yeah, like I think that the public is pretty far off on, like, this is definitely a public bet, the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. And assuming we get the Hawks backcourt relatively healthy, I think they should be favored by 3 or more points. Like it feels wrong because they're so far behind the Cavs in the standings, but the Hawks were just really, really ravaged by COVID earlier in the year. Like, they lost some games where they had no one playing. And I think that's why their record's bad. I don't think there's actually anything wrong with the team right now.
Yeah, they've been playing better as of late. Plus, you gotta remember it's Atlanta, and when the visiting team comes in,
yeah, they knocked off the Suns. I think that was I don't know if we did a show that night, but a couple weeks ago, yeah, they beat the Suns at home outright. They definitely can beat good teams.
Something about that place, Atlanta, for the visiting opponent. They just want to go out and soak up the weather. Cleveland is cold. They want to get outside. Yeah. You can put 2 and 2 together, what I'm getting at here. Any news we get to, any news that comes our way, we will share. No question. We want to look at some futures. If you have DFS questions, we will work them in. So please fire away in the YouTube chat, also on the Twitch chat. We will get to them. Let's go to some futures, because this Atlantic Division, you probably missed out on some excellent value end of last week once stuff got reposted after the trades on Thursday. The trade, Simmons and Harden, and of course the Celtics just keep winning. So I've got my Celtics pajamas on right now as I say this, but yeah, I mean the Celtics they're thriving. They've won 8 in a row, and as each day goes in this NBA season, you are losing value on the Boston Celtics. But Chirag Hira, he's already got the value on the Toronto Raptors in the win total. So happy for Chirag. We're all kind of involved here in the Atlantic Division. It's really fun. Meiselman, what do you want to get to as it pertains to division winner? What is your thought here? Sixers are your favorite at -295. The Boston Celtics at +500, and they play each other tonight.
Yep. So that's the thing. Part of why I like division betting so much is because division odds will react to injuries. They'll react to trades. We saw the division odds basically just go off the board immediately after the James Harden trade. They don't react as fast for whatever reason to the outcomes of games. And anyone who follows basketball can understand that the Celtics playing the Sixers when they're 2 games apart is impactful for the standings and who wins the division based on the outcome of that game. Philly's currently 2 games up. If Boston wins, they're within a game. It's an important win as far as tiebreaker scenarios are concerned. And yeah, if the Celtics manage to win this game, +500, I think is a ridiculous line. We also just had the Raptors lose last night to the Pelicans after losing at home to the Nuggets, who are a much better team. But still, the Raptors have lost 2 in a row now. I think the Raptors kind of peaked in terms of division value. And Fred VanVleet's questionable tomorrow. The Raptors have been playing their starters heavy minutes. I still think the Raptors make the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. But as far as winning the division, I'm not really worrying about them right now. And the Nets have just lost so many games, despite winning last night against the Kings. Like, they're still so far back. So I'm not worried about them yet either. I think right now it's a 2-team race, at least for now, until we get maybe, if the Nets beat the Sixers in a game coming up, things change. But yeah, like if Philly wins this game, I think they're in position to run away with it, with Harden coming back after the break and everything like that. I'd probably be mildly interested in the -300 if Philly wins the game tonight. But if Boston wins the game tonight, I love +500. So if you can wait till maybe the 4th quarter and one of these teams is up 10 or 15 points and the game's not officially over, but you have a pretty good idea of who's going to win, like that's where I would strike. So yeah, if we have this game not exactly close at the end, I can't say for sure if you're going to be able to wait till it's over before the odds change, but
I was just going to ask that. Yeah,
it's different every time. I don't know, but I will have all the windows open looking at this during the game. That's for sure. I think it's a situation that's really worth paying attention to, and it doesn't just because Boston wins this game doesn't mean they're going to win the division. But if they do win it, a couple days from now, I think we're going to see the Celtics down to like +200. This will move the line, the result of this game, in one way or the other. So, yeah, it's early enough in the season where some people might think it's crazy to care this much about the winner of games for divisions, but I don't think it's too early. Like, I think we've hit that point in the season where now it's starting to be relevant.
Plus, this, Chirag, is a tiebreaker tonight. This is the final meeting of the regular season between the 2 teams. The Celtics, way back when, beat the Sixers before Chris. Oh, I apologize. This is meeting 4 of the season. The Sixers have won 2. Boston has won 1. I apologize.
One more after this, or this would even out the tiebreaker?
It's at 4. I think you play each of your division opponents 4 times.
Yes.
Not 5.
So it'll be decided by something else. We don't know yet.
Yes. So this is crucial for Boston. They've got a split. So they beat them December 1 at home, 88-87, and then Philly's won the last 2. Philly beat them by 5 in December, and then I went to the game in January, and they got their butt kicked. So that was not fun. I remember that one vividly. That's when I thought it was really over for the Boston Celtics, at least for this season, that is. But they They've rebounded, as we know. So, Chirag, you have a thought on this as it pertains to the division? Do we have any interest in Brooklyn now in quadruple digits at plus 1,100?
I mean, it's crazy to see Brooklyn here at plus 1,100 to win the division. But if you go to their champion odds, like how crazy is it that
that's
a team that can't even get close to winning their division is still the favorite for the title? Is it out of whack, the championship odds, and is there value here, and should we be attacking here? Or is the value that, oh my God, like this team could just turn it around and go on a 10-game win streak when KD comes back and Kyrie's full and the mandates all come down and Kyrie's welcome back into New York and he's the savior with Ben Simmons? Like, there's some crazy things that could happen in the next 3 months, and an injury could happen. But then I think that James Harden coming back and him being so happy to be back with Daryl Morey, it's going to be a thing. And the way the Celtics are playing, I don't think there's value really. But if there's a way to take that and then maybe hedge out of it or something like that, that's the only way. But it's crazy to me. The biggest point here is that they're so far behind in the division and they're still the champions favorites.
Yeah, there's an explanation.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You want me to? Okay, I'll just explain what's going on there. Odds in general take longer to move backwards than they do to move forwards, because if no one's betting the Nets right now anyway, the odds just don't need to adjust that quickly. The Lakers were the championship favorites this season for about 2 months. Sorry to bring them up again. But the Lakers were up there as the top team for championship odds for a long time. It tends to be slower for teams to fall backwards. We saw early in the season, the Chicago Bulls jumped way up really fast, moving forward in the odds because, like the books are going to get pretty exposed if they don't realize that a team that's 100-1 to win the championship is actually a pretty good team. But in the other direction, you don't see it as much. So I don't really care that the Nets are favored to win, honestly. Like, that's not an indication of anything to me other than the odds are old. Like, that just, it hasn't fixed yet. And as far as the division, though, I do think there's going to be a point where it's worth considering the Nets. The problem for the Nets is their first game out of the break next Thursday is a home game with the Boston Celtics, and Kyrie Irving can't play for now. Ben Simmons may play, right? Like, we don't know that. Kevin Durant will not be back by then. I think that's pretty clear. So if they drop, if they win that game, I think then I'm starting to get interested at plus 1,100. But assuming the Nets lose at home to the Celtics again, I think we can almost write off their division chances. Like, that's a game they need to win.
I'm not the CDC, but possibly by next Thursday, maybe there is something there for Kyrie to play in home games. Maybe. I don't know. But there would have to be a lot.
That's a fun kind of news to try to react to is, usually we're just waiting to see if Jimmy Butler's going to play or John Morant's going to play. Now let's see what the CDC announces and then bet the Nets division off of that. Like,
turn your CDC Twitter alerts on for NBA futures.
I mean, you have to think Shams and Woj would be interested in that.
Dude, that's instantly going to be tweeted out by Shams and Woj.
It's true, though. I mean, it's fair. And you know something, too? I think what we're finding out, Chirag, to maybe give yourself some clarity is they're giving Kevin Durant the LeBron Cavs treatment.
What do you mean?
That's what they're doing. In the sense that, all right, as long as we get it right before April and we play our best basketball in April, it doesn't matter what seed we are, we can make a run. But in my opinion, and this is a compliment to LeBron James, he might be the only one who could ever get away with that when he did in his window in Cleveland, meaning we can waltz in as a 5 seed and we'll be fine. And we could still get to the conference finals. And that was also LeBron James, who never got hurt. LeBron James. Kevin Durant has been hurt multiple times. He now has to deal with a point guard who we don't know when can play in home games or not. And the other guard / forward / whatever you want to call him, Ben Simmons, we don't know where he's at up here. And I don't mean to make light of that. It's just there's a lot to overcome there. This is not just then again, the talent is there in Brooklyn. It's not like it's a LeBron fringe roster that he's carrying J.R. Smith and Matthew Dellavedova with him. There's talent, which could help Brooklyn, of course, substantially. So I think that's what this line is. It's giving Durant credit for being, next to Giannis, the best player in the conference, when right.
Yeah, because if the Nets were down to 30-1 to win the championship, there's a chance for like the sports books just to get killed on that if the Nets figure it out. So maybe it's just they're worried, right? But
Yeah.
you can't really you can't bet that now. I
But
think
how are they ahead of the Suns? How are they ahead of the Suns?
no, I've been confused by the lack of Suns respect for the whole season. It makes no sense. The reason that I think the Suns are potentially the best finals bet compared to in the East, well, I still think it's the Celtics, just given the odds, but the West is weaker than the East. The top of the East suddenly is just everyone is phenomenal. So yeah, like the Celtics are good now, or they were good before. They're better now. The Sixers got better. The Nets potentially, you could argue, got better just given like the turmoil they had before. Like once they get healthy, they may be better. The Bucks are going to be really good. Like the East has a lot of good teams, and in the West, the Warriors are falling back a bit. The Jazz have struggled a little bit. And I forgot to mention the Heat in the Eastern Conference too. That's just like an overlooked team, I guess. All right, I'm going to stop there because we're getting our news now. Jimmy Butler's going to play, and we got some Hawks guys that are going to play.
Nice. So we taking the Heat here with.
I'm not necessarily. I think at this point it's basically been accounted for that Butler was going to play. So I'm kind of just uninterested there.
Line hasn't moved.
I think it'll end up probably being about 5.5 if I had to guess. Like we'll see a slight move here. I don't really yeah, I'm not really concerned about that one. The Hawks though, I think we will get up to like -2 potentially. Is that one may be off the board for now.
It's right there at 1.
Yeah. I mean, I like Hawks -1. I don't think it's
there you go. Miami, Dallas is off the board.
Yeah, when that comes back, I'm guessing 5.5, maybe 6 at most. Like, I guess if you bet -4.5, that's okay. But yeah, I'm not especially excited about that. The thing I'm waiting for the most is the Ja Morant news. But if past history with Morant is any indication, he tends to play when he's questionable. I think that's been a thing throughout the season. And they also tend to wait right up until game time with him. So I'm kind of just expecting that again. I think we most likely see Morant announced available to play like 40 minutes from now. But he could get ruled out. The Grizzlies also do play tomorrow. That's probably the one reason I'm not so sure he's going to play. I think the fact they have a back-to-back, neither game is especially important for the Grizzlies for playoff seeding. They're playing the Pelicans, but like that's not, the Pelicans aren't catching Memphis for the division. Grizzlies are probably going to run away from Dallas. So I don't think they're really worried about that. They're probably more worried about the 1 seed than anything. And then tomorrow's game against Portland, like maybe he rests that one. I think it makes sense Morant sits one of these 2 games. So yeah, we'll still have to wait and see there. But to me, the line was basically already accounting for Butler to play, so not much to do there. The 2 big news things we have left are Morant and then obviously Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. Maybe we get those soon. We haven't heard anything about them yet, right? Maybe in the next few minutes before we get out of here, Celtics will tell us something.
Maybe. Because I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah. You know, normally with these things, right, we get an update like this player remains questionable or will be a game time decision, any of that. I think we'll get that update soon. My guess, well, Marcus Smart's dealing with a non-COVID illness, so we don't know what that is. Robert Williams has a calf injury. That sounds like the kind of thing where he tries to warm up and see how it feels. Because this game is important. Like, I think both guys are going to try to play. But you also don't want to lose a guy to like Rudy Gobert missed 2 or 3 weeks with a calf injury. You don't want to have that situation, you know, for just 1 game if he's hurt. So my hunch is that Robert Williams doesn't play and that Marcus Smart does, but we're just going to have to wait and see because, yeah, they haven't told us anything.
Producer Eamon has shared news on Paul Millsap will make his debut. Remember, Paul Millsap was acquired in the trade last Thursday. That is notable. Paul Millsap matters too.
He may be the backup center now, right?
Yeah,
like they don't
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
there's an opportunity here for Paul Millsap to have an impact on this team because they traded away Drummond. They don't really
$3,400 tonight too.
DFS. Well, not from. I don't think he's going to be a huge impact. The way to look at him is that Joel Embiid has a potential to sit. If there's any games that Tobias Harris ends up sitting coming up in the future, those are your opportunities to attack. You see, all right, Paul Millsap is where we're going to go to first. You can look at it from when news breaks, because Embiid, as good as he's played this year and as many games as he played this year to put himself, he knows he needs to be put into the MVP conversation with that. And so there still is a chance for him to rest a little bit, and Paul Millsap will probably step up into that role as a starting center to be with this team because they're okay with going small.
Still waiting on that Celtics news. We're hoping to get it here before we go. For the people that are tuning in, maybe each of you want to share a value play you like tonight in DFS for the 7-game slate. Maybe a player you like, someone that could return some value.
Yeah, we don't have any. Well, we're gonna get news. I think. Can we play Daniel Tice? Like, I don't know what his role is going to be, but like there's going to be some weird stuff that happens if the Celtics are missing players. Like maybe it's just Al Horford becomes more of a can't miss option. But like, I think it's at least possible that Daniel Tice starts because it's Embiid and they want a bigger body out there to guard him at least, the first 6 minutes of each half or something like that. So maybe Tice still isn't even playable if he's only playing 12, 15 minutes, even if he's starting. Al Horford really is the guy who benefits if Robert Williams doesn't play. So like if that comes close to the start of if that news doesn't come till like right before lock, like if we get that at 7:15 that Robert Williams is out, Al Horford is probably underowned. And then we have to wait potential late swap opportunities with the Clippers where I think a lot of people are interested in Terrence Mann, but if Kennard plays, no one's gonna have Kennard.
Right.
So I potentially like
that. He's gonna heat up the minutes. When Kennard plays and he's actually like coming in off the bench, there's an option for him to play over 20 minutes here. So it is going to be an impact.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think we ran out of time, so could have been fun, but blame Celtics, blame the Sixers folks that are covering the game, at least for not sharing. So
it would have been fun if Jimmy Butler got ruled out. We could have had a lot of stuff to react to, but unfortunately, just boring news.
It is what it is. And the line came up as +5. So you were close. You missed it by half a point.
Yeah, maybe it'll keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Hawks are still a 1-point favorite, despite having some guys available. So that line does not move.
I just think the public is betting the Cavs heavily enough that it's holding it in place. Like to the average person looking at the records of these two teams, like the Cavs are way better. I don't buy it, even with John Collins out.
Yeah. All
right. So I think our biggest takeaway from this show tonight is that 7:30 game, which probably skips at like 7:45, knowing the TNT schedule. Celtics Sixers. If you're interested in that Atlantic Division futures, check it out because the Celtics, if they pull this off tonight, that's going to change some things. Possibly. Maybe not drastically, but could move in that direction. And James Harden is not playing. James Harden's not playing until next week after the All-Star break. So very good. For Chirag Hira, Matt Meiselman, thanks to Tom and Eamon behind the scenes for all they do. Brendan Glasheen staying so long. Don't forget, you have the Sweat tomorrow at 11 a.m. on the DraftKings YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter platform, DK Live. And you get the Golf Guys tomorrow. It's Golf Guy Wednesday, so don't miss that starting at 5 o'clock when the slate begins. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.